Hey nerds, we're diving into the Klingon psyche. We're reviewing Star Trek Starfleet Academy, Season 1, Episode 4, Vox in Excelso. This episode puts Jay-Den Kraag front and center as he confronts a family tragedy, a painful past, and the question of what it means to be a Klingon warrior in the 32nd century. Let's dive a little deeper, starting now. Welcome back to the Nerd Soul Show. I'm Nathan.
And Khandra.
As always, if you want to skip ahead of the intro to our analysis, rating, or breakdown, check the chapter links below. So this episode is available on Paramount Plus on Thursday, January 29th, and it runs about 58 minutes. Quick channel note, I posted a breakdown of episode 3 last week, and the link is still active on our YouTube page, but it's being blocked by YouTube because of clips that we're using. Please bear with us while we appeal on fair use grounds. In that video, I noted that our episode 1 and 2 breakdowns were delayed because Khandra was having some network issues when we were recording. So we'll have those up as soon as we can. Okay, back to episode 4. Let's kick things off with a spoiler-free logline. When an existential crisis threatens to wipe out a beloved but infamous Star Trek species, a cadet is forced to confront his past and strain relationships with his family. As he pursues an unexpected method of coping, Nala races against time to save the species from extinction.
So before we dive in, let's talk about the title. Vox in Excelso is Latin from a voice from on high. Historically, it refers to a papal bull issued in 1312 that dissolved the Knights Templar, which was an order of warriors disbanded by decree. For an episode about a Klingon finding his voice to save his people, that is a loaded title choice. Is Jay-Den the voice from on high that his people need? Let's find out.
So, this episode is directed by Doug Aronofsky, continuing his work from episode 3. He's a veteran of modern Trek who directed episodes of Discovery and Picard. This episode is written by Jaya Viola, the series creator, alongside Eric Anthony Glover. Glover previously wrote for Discovery and brings his experience with serialized Trek storytelling, fitting for an episode this emotionally layered. So, Khandra, what was your spoiler thoughts about this episode?
So I love that they're diving into the histories of the cadets in this episode, and particularly Jay-Den Kraag. We knew coming in that Jay-Den was an anomaly, right? He's a Klingon who is not interested in dying in battle, right? He's interested in saving lives and living life to the fullest. But now we really get to see how unique he is. And we're also learning more about what happened to the Klingon Empire since the burn, right? We didn't see much of that in Discovery. Klingons have been significant adversaries and sometimes allies of the Federation. I enjoyed how this episode really just exposed more of their culture, particularly post-burn, and how they've adapted to that. And then just seeing the relationships develop between the cadets as they learn more about each other and also try to support one another, particularly in the really tough events that we see in this episode. In classic Trek, we get a really diplomatic resolution at the end. So this episode cements what we can expect from this series while still having those classic Trek elements.
Yeah, for me, this episode, as you said, is where Starfleet Academy proves it can do character work on par with the best Trek. Jay-Den has been a presence in the first 3 episodes. His awkward Klingon jokes, his pacifism, his friendship with Caleb, but we haven't really understood him until now. What I love about this episode is how it reframes what it means to be a Klingon warrior. It's not just about rejecting violence, it's about understanding that battle can take many forms. The Doctor's debate class becomes the arena where Jay-Den finds his weapon. We also get some wonderful moments between Jay-Den and Caleb, and this episode gives Commander Thok much more depth than we've seen before. Holly Hunter continues to impress as Aki, and there's some surprising backstory for her character there too. The pacing is excellent. We move between present day drama and flashbacks that generally illuminate character rather than just filling time. So let's talk about ratings. How would you rate Vox in Excelso?
This episode, Vox in Excelso, was a 7.5 for me. Really, I think really great character development, storyline. They also set up the plot for what I hope to see more of in the future. So 7.5.
Yeah, so this episode, out of the 6 that we got advanced access to, truly made me tear up at points. For me, It's a movie marathon or a 9 on our scale, and if you're unfamiliar with our scale, it is down below in the description. I will definitely be watching this episode on rewatch as an exemplar of what Trek can be. It was the high watermark for me, even though I think other episodes were more action heavy and more exciting that are coming up, and also that we've already seen. This is really an example of what Trek can be for me. All right, but to speak about this episode more, we actually have to start breaking it down with spoilers. So if you're enjoying the review so far, please like and share. It really helps us out. All right, let's get to the recap and the breakdown. Spoilers ahead.
Great. So this episode opens with Chancellor K's morning address, and this plays over shots of the USS Athena, which is circling the Vought Nebula. I'm really enjoying these addresses that she gives to the cadets. Then we cut to the doctor's debate class, where he quotes Judge Aaron Satie with the first speech censured, the first thought forbidden. Genesis, who's the star pupil, correctly identifies the quote, and the doctor explains that the Academy is holding its first Aaron Satie debate competition in over a century, and this really sets up the plot for the rest of the episode. Jay-Den whispers to Caleb that he does not like public speaking. Caleb is skeptical of this. You must have some game. And Jay-Den, who is always the comic relief, Klingons do not do game, we do complex and violent rituals that end in bloodshed. The doctor overhears this. My notes said debate is one of the oldest arts, and if we recall from Voyager, he debated himself into existence, right? The doctor argued for his existence, and it's debate that brought Beta Z system back into the Federation. We saw that a couple of episodes ago. In the next scene, we see the cadets warming up, debating against each other. Genesis and Caleb spar on sentient existence should return to pre-warp era, and whether the War College should move to Earth. Caleb, surprisingly, really just demolishes opponents. He's able to remember citations and regulations, and it's just spot on every time. In contrast, Jay-Den freezes at the podium when it's his turn, when he's really speechless, and the doctor asks if he's all right, but he can't speak at all. After this, we cut to Caleb and Jay-Den hiding from the holo guards while eating contraband food. Caleb has reprogrammed a replicator and has Dots bringing them lunch, and Jay-Den is adamant about not eating food that didn't honorably die in a fair fight. And this is a really touching moment between the two of them. You see them start to bond. Jay-Den questions whether Caleb is hoarding food under his bed again. Caleb just ignores it, but he reveals that he made Jay-Den a Klingon dish, Braget Long, which is basically entrail stew or warrior stew. And Jay-Den denies eating it because it's a dish that is only served when someone has been successful in battle. It also comes out in this conversation that Jay-Den grew up with 3 parents in a triad house. He refers to his fathers and mother. And Caleb shares what he knows about Klingons and that he knew a Klingon woman who told him the story of Kalas and how he united the great houses, conquered Kronos, and warriors laid their weapons at his feet. Jay-Den says, "My parents used to sing us to sleep with that myth. It gave us comfort in the refugee camps." And then after this, we see Jay-Den being summoned to Chancellor's office, where she tells him that a ship carrying members of the 8 remaining houses to a refugee camp suffered catastrophic mechanical failure, and they are unsure about the survival status of Jay-Den's family. And news clips playing in one of the rooms the cadets are in, letting us know that after the burn caused the dilithium reactors on Kronos and other worlds to explode, billions perished. Now one of the most powerful races sits on the brink of extinction. I think this is the first time we're really getting a sense of how far the Klingon Empire has fallen. He offers Jay-Den time off and counseling, but he refuses and basically says that he said goodbye to his family a long time ago. So that Judge Satie quote is a deep cut and a cold open. There's a lot happening there. We get Jay-Den's state, his friendship with Caleb, and the devastating news about the last great houses at the Klingons, all before the credits.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like you said, the Judge Aaron Satie quote is a deep cut reference to TNG from 91, the Drumhead, one of the better episodes of early TNG. Admiral Nora Satie's father, a famous jurist, as the center of that quote. We also get in this episode references to Voyager from the Doctor, how he fought for his independence in more than one episode. There was a echo of Measure of a Man, but honestly, he argued over a course of several episodes for more independence. They culminated in that episode. Betazoid rejoining, of course, happened a couple episodes back. There was episode 2 here. Braget Lung, honestly, this is probably something that has come up before. but it's not something that I clocked, that it was a dish reserved for those who served in battle, and he doesn't feel like he has served in battle yet. We have references to Kalish, which has come up in several Trek episodes, specifically TNG, but also Deep Space Nine, because Worf, I think it was season 4 he moved over to Deep Space Nine, or season 3, I forget.
Yeah.
But Kalish comes up a lot because the Klingons feature a lot in TNG and also DS9, and to a small extent Voyager as well because of
B'Elanna.
B'Elanna Torres. The references to the burn here devastating the Klingons. It's interesting because I think in this scene, we also get some newscasts from FNN, Federation News Network, which I think I first saw in Picard or Lower Decks. I forget which one they had FNN, but they mentioned, I think there was a devastation because they were using dilithium reactors on Kronos, but I can't imagine they're the only world that was using dilithium reactors. So it's interesting that they were more devastated than, say, Earth. I don't remember any other power source that would give you as much energy as you need to bend space-time. So I would assume they're using it to power things on planets as well. Interesting that they're the only ones who got devastated, or that we know of anyway.
I guess it could be their level of use, like that it was widespread, whereas maybe other societies or other cultures did not use it.
We do see solar panels and all kinds of other things in Picard's time as well. So maybe they're using multiple power sources on Earth and other places, and maybe the Klingons were solely dependent on dilithium to power their world, and then when things blew up, they really blew up for them. I don't know. And then, as you mentioned, Jay-Den, and we talked about this offline, mentions fathers, and then he says a triad house. We listened to that a couple times. There hasn't really been a reference to this in Trek before, and I wonder, and we talked about this as well, when Kor met Jadzia Dax, he was accepting of her immediately. So they don't really have any issues with like gender identity, stuff like that. We haven't seen sexual preference discussed within the culture before, but I wonder if this has anything to do with the catastrophe. There's less females, so you have to, out of necessity, do this.
That could be, yeah. It could also just be forming alliances between houses, since there's so few of the older houses. I don't know, maybe, I assume the minor houses got hit as hard as well, but it could just be a strategy to maintain alliances and family ties. Yeah,
we heard in this opening that there's only 8 remaining houses, and there were definitely a lot more than that. There were the major houses and their minor houses. The whole empire is reduced down to 8 houses. It's crazy. So yeah. So then we, after the credits, move on to Act 1 of the episode, which puts us into a flashback with Jay-Den's brother Dar. Young Jay-Den and his brother Dar go birdwatching instead of hunting. Dar tells Jay-Den, "You were supposed to be teaching me to hunt today." Dar responds, "That is what I told them, but that is not for you, Jay-Den. Yours is a different path." At dinner, their father presents Dar with a bow. "I made this for you. The way our ancestors have been making weapons for centuries, Klingon in its marrow." He promises to make one for Jay-Den once you complete the hunt and become a warrior like your brother. Jay-Den declares, "I do not want a weapon." His father is furious. "Herbs and healing have their place, but they will not serve you if you're dead." Back in the present day, Jay-Den mourns alone. The flashback continues. At his grave marker, Jay-Den asks, "Why couldn't they see me as you saw me?" He remembers Dar giving him a forbidden Starfleet transmitter from a trading post. "Your mind is hungry, Jay-Den. We should feed it." Then we hear a recruitment play for Starfleet Academy, very similar to the recruit that we heard in the last episode. "Your destiny, little brother, is not here. It's out there in the stars." In the class, Doctor asks for debate topic suggestions. A cadet suggests the Klingon diaspora. Another cadet dismisses it. Everyone knows that they lost Kronos because they blew it up themselves. Caleb says, "Read a book." Jay-Den insists it is the one thing everyone is already talking about, already speaking about. Avoiding reality does not make it disappear. The doctor reluctantly agrees. The topic is set whether the Federation should provide asylum to Klingons. So, a couple things here. The traditional weapon of the Klingons is a bat'leth, but it seems in this episode, Dar is given a bow and arrow, if I'm remembering correctly. The Starfleet Academy recruitment that we saw in the previous episode, this is the first time that Starfleet has been reopened in 120 years. Kronos is the homeworld of the Klingons. Any other thoughts about this first act that I might be missing?
Not quite. You're seeing more about how Jay-Den got to Starfleet, right? Like he had a non-traditional path there. Now we're getting a better sense of why Klingons weren't exactly lining up to join Starfleet before, but especially
But
now.
that was true, but this was like hundreds of years ago. Yeah.
But they've never been, and I think that skepticism about what destroyed Kronos is also emblematic of the fact that it was still a very closed society. Like not a lot of non-Klingons had access to the Klingon homeworld. And so even though the entire universe experienced the burn, there's this skepticism like, oh, they blew their homeworld up themselves. And it's, no, like they were likely using more dilithium than people thought. But yeah, there's still just not a lot known about Klingons beyond them being this very aggressive and warmongering species.
Although by the end of the TNG era, and definitely into the DS9 era, because at the end of the TNG era, they were allies. And then there was the DS9 era where they were aggressive enemies until the end of the Dominion War when they were allies again. So they've been on again, off again allies for a while. When they became allies was Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, when there was this plot by high-ranking Klingon and also high-ranking admirals, very similar to the situation here, refused the help of Starfleet because they had an ecological disaster, right? Yeah, it's interesting. So,
Yeah, so Act 2, we see Admiral Vance cluing in Chancellor Ake into a potential plan for helping the Klingon refugees. He briefs Ake on Fawn Alpha, which is an uninhabited planet that has geothermal energy matching Kronos, and he presents it as a potential new Klingon homeworld. But the Klingons have refused. They would rather die than take Starfleet charity. Admiral Vance suggests that Ake contact General Obel Wokak, an old warlord known to be open to outsiders as long as it benefits his people. He reveals that he's been reading Ake's classified files for 7 years and notes it. They are longer than War and Peace and so much more insane with all the plot twists. Ake agrees to a secret meeting, noting that if anybody knew Obel Wokak would be dishonored, he would risk dishonor from his own. So then we go back to the preparation for the debate. Genesis is worried about Jay-Den, and Caleb offers to partner with him, arguing the affirmative that the Federation should offer asylum to the refugees. However, Jay-Den refuses and knows, you were not offering partnership, you were offering to speak for me. Jay-Den then reveals that he's arguing the negative, that the Federation should not offer asylum, and that any plan for Klingon survival should be left to the Klingons. Genesis openly disagrees with this. You don't think the Federation's protection would help your people? Jay-Den responds that there is no protection, not from loss. There never can be. Then we flash back to his brother Dar's death. Jay-Den's mother screaming. Dar was stabbed at the trading post while trying to obtain more Starfleet technology. This time it was a dermal generator, and this was for Jay-Den. The blade was poisoned, and while Dar is dying, he tells Jay-Den that no matter what happens, you are enough. He's everything. Warrior, healer. Jay-Den, trust yourself. Those are his last words. His last words to him.
Yeah, this new world, Fawn Alpha, is an interesting prospect here. And again, we get these screeners a while before you guys do, and they don't have subtitles, so I just assume it's Fawn Alpha and not be pronounced or spelled some other way. But what I really found interesting was Aki's relationship with this Klingon general, because we know that the Klingons are long-lived, but she's almost 500 years old, and this Klingon general, I guess, is probably around 200 years old.
When they meet, she said he's seen a sin.
Yeah, he's interesting that her personal files are just available for admirals to read. I assume she made them available. I guess after 500 years, you don't care. You're gonna hang something around my neck for something I did 350 years ago, whatever.
Yeah, but as a Starfleet officer, I've never gotten the impression that even in personal files, I assume somebody had some level of access to, right? Because they might be, you want a record of it, I guess, different levels of classification, right? There's top secret. She was a captain, lived a really long time, and so there's the wealth of information in her personal files and whatever she chose to make public. Yeah.
I would also say she's probably one of the few, like the Doctor, who has been in Starfleet before the burn and after the burn, because all the humans wouldn't have been, like, even the ones who are in charge now are not old enough to have lived in like many years when Star Trek was stable, and then many years after, during the burn and then after the burn. So maybe that's why she's opened up her archive so that they can understand what the Federation was a bit better and what the galaxy was a bit better. We also get a reference here to a dermal regenerator. Of course, those have shown up definitely in TNG, but maybe I need to do some research. They might have actually shown up even before that in TOS. Yeah. So then we get Act 3, Aki and Obel Woka. I'm not pronouncing this. So they meet secretly. There's an obvious romantic history between them. It says, it's good to see you. Time has had a light touch, even for a laugh tonight. And then she rejoins, says the Klingon who's seen a century. Aki presents Fawn Alpha. Obel refuses. Fawn Alpha is charity. The houses would never accept it. We have nothing left but our traditions. Our houses will only unite over conquest. Aki says conquest won't save you extinction, and it'll only orphan my cadet. Obel is surprised to learn there's a Klingon in the academy. Then we go to a clash between Jay-Den and Caleb. Caleb tries to help Jay-Den practice. Try losing the notes. Memorizing your arguments ends up being liberating. Their arguments escalate. Caleb claims they have an orphan fraternity thing going on. Jay-Den, we are not brothers. Jay-Den cuts deep here. You do not have people. You regurgitate facts about everything and everyone, Klingon history, the Federation, but you have no understanding of what any of that means. Back to Aki and Obel. More of their history emerges. They reminisce about a glorious night and how the cops came. They woke up. Obek agrees to look into whether Jay-Den's family survived, but he won't accept Fawn Alpha. A century later, you're still surprised when you don't get your way, he says to her. So again, Aki's history here is interesting. He was a young diplomat decades ago, and this is another nod to the Klingon honor culture. The houses only unite under conquests, which we saw a lot in TNG and in Voyager as well. It's very important to their culture. So, yeah.
And I think this is a little bit of foreshadowing as to what the resolution for this problem is, right? They're only going to claim Fawn Alpha if they can win it in battle.
Exactly.
So we move on to Act 4, starts with another flashback. This is after the death of Jay-Den's brother. His father is trying to still convince him to hunt, be a traditional Klingon, and he's taking Jay-Den on a traditional hunting rite of passage. So you complete the hunt and make your first kill, you'll take your place in the house and come back a true warrior. Jay-Den asks his father to reconsider Starfleet Academy. He wants to learn valuable skills. His father gets angry. This is an insult to your family. And at this point, they see a bird of prey in the sky, and the father tells Jay-Den, now is your time, son. Jay-Den refuses and says that he's honoring his brother. His father, who's holding the bow and arrow, takes a shot and misses. And Jay-Den believes that his father missed out of rage, and the family subsequently abandons him on the planet that they're on. We next see Darim trying to help Jay-Den. He finds him in his room, and Darim says whatever he said to Caleb has him stomping around our room, and he's being super pissy with him. And Darim asks Jay-Den to hit him to release tension, and Jay-Den refuses and says it would be like squashing an insect. He knows his power. And I also really enjoyed this moment where Darim teaches Jay-Den a Kionian technique for managing fear. And they teach young fighters on Kaya when fear takes hold to breathe and plant your feet. And they practice this together, and Jay-Den rehearses his opening while doing this breathing exercise. My opponent has argued that the Klingon Empire, and you start to see him find his voice. And then the moment just gets disrupted. He again, I think is in a place where he doesn't want any help from anyone, right? His friends are trying to help him, different strategies, and he's just, no. Did you have any more thoughts on this act?
Yeah, so I mentioned this when I did the review, my spoiler-free review of the entire season, and if you guys haven't caught that, there's a link above. Durham definitely started off as a bit of an ass, but over the last couple episodes, after rewatching the third episode, because the third episode was one of the lower ones for me when I watched it around Christmas time, but when I watched it again to actually do the breakdown, the fact that they framed it, the framing device was basically his letter to his parents at the beginning and then the end, and the growth that he showed over that episode, you see it continuing here, him making himself vulnerable and actually showing a little bit of his culture to Jay-Den. So we actually have a cultural exchange without even a human in the room. I found pretty interesting. All right, so in Act 5, we actually get the debate that we have been riling up for the entire episode. The Aaron Sox debate competition. The Doctor welcomes everyone to the Academy's first debate competition in over a century. Preliminary rounds, Genesis versus Durham. Other cadets compete. Aki and Thok watch aside to Aki. I take it things went badly with Obel. What? Final round, Caleb for the affirmative, Jay-Den for the negative. Caleb argues the Federation law requires providing aid to sentient beings. Jay-Den counters with codes about not contradicting alien morality. They trade legal citations rapidly. Jay-Den, is it not an existential right? Without self-determination, are Klingons Klingons? Does the Federation require other great people to cease to be in order to redefine itself after the burn? Caleb gets personal. I know a Klingon who's rejected the isolationism you say defines all Klingons, and now enjoys Federation-provided food, safety, and resources. Jay-Den fires back. You refuse to belong to anything, yet you would define it for those who are willing to die for it. Though Doctor disqualifies them both for arguing both of you out. You are done. So you have various Federation laws cited here. Didn't have a chance to look them up. I'm sure some of them are things that have been referenced in the past. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting and heated exchange between the two of them.
No, it got very personal very quickly. And I think it's also during this scene where Thok realizes that she should have done more for Jay-Den, right? And then we see her doing that because she is half Klingon and half Jem'Hadar.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's going on with Jay-Den beyond the obvious of maybe all his family is that he's always had a difficult relationship with his culture and also his family, but also his bonding with Caleb. He's maybe feeling guilty because of the loss of his brother. The loss of his brother is probably always with him, but he's feeling it more acutely now that everyone else is gone and he's starting to have these flashbacks. So maybe he's feeling like he was replacing his brother, betraying his brother. So maybe why he's being so aggressive with Caleb is what I'm thinking.
That could definitely be a part of it. Yeah. So in this next act, you see Commander Thok reaching out to Jay-Den and revealing that she comes from a Jem'Hadar Klingon family. She is free Jem'Hadar lineage on her father's side and Klingon on her mother's side. She says that her Klingon grandparents renounced their house to ride in conquest by the side of the Jem'Hadar. Jay-Den confesses that I do not know what Klingon I am or what Starfleet officer I dishonored both worlds. He relays to Commander Thok the story about the hunt with his father and how his father missed out of anger. She reframes it. Klingons do not miss out of anger. A hunt is a battle, and rage makes our kills more satisfying, not less. She tells him that, I believe your father honored the hunt the only way he knew how, by recognizing your victory and setting you free. And your father missed. He shot to let you go. He saw you for who you are, a Klingon warrior whose passion for death is surpassed only by his passion for life. Thok clues Jay-Den into the fact that there is a planet, Fawn Alpha, that could be a new Kronos that the Federation wants to gift to the Klingons, but the offer was rejected. And Jay-Den is now eager to get back on that debate stage. Jay-Den returns to the debate. He gives this really impassioned speech. I am a Klingon warrior. I learned that here. That is not a simple thing to say. And he recognizes and acknowledges that Caleb had valid points, but argues the Federation stops being the Federation if it insists that Klingons stop being Klingons. These are not mutually exclusive. Both exist in me. I exist as both on my own terms. Now it is time we meet Klingons on theirs. He invokes Kalash. Our culture was born amid battle. Warriors everywhere laid their weapons at his feet. Battle exists in as many forms as there are warriors. As long as it is fought in service of our people, battle is the language we use to honor each other. And he goes on, therefore I suggest a Klingon solution to a Klingon problem. And so this, you start to really, to I guess come back to the title, you see Jay-Den find his voice here, right? He goes from it's very introverted, just having a meltdown before giving a speech to
even thinking about it.
And I found myself as he was giving this speech and I was like, you're right. Like the Federation has always tried to not diminish a culture, right? So they could find was like the Federation's laws or
ethos basically
could not run roughshod over another culture. And so I'm like, oh yeah. Because when this first started, I was like, you don't want the Federation to help? And I'm like, no, but what you're saying is right. Like the solution has to come from and be in line with Klingon traditions.
But also Federation values, which is to uphold and also value and respect other people's traditions. So this is actually the point where I cried a little bit, his speech, because similar to the last episode when Ake was giving the speech to Caleb about how the War College is teaching you how to fight battles and we're teaching you how to end battles. It's more like the ethos of what Star Trek is supposed to be. And since this show is supposed to be an entry point for a new generation, I know it's annoying to some some people because it's following a bunch of young people, but this franchise can't go on if all the people are like 40 or above. So you have to have some entry points. I really appreciate that this episode and the previous episode are really hammering home what makes Star Trek special to a lot of people over the last 60 years.
Yeah, I find it, for me, like, it's really underlining those points, right? This is why you liked Trek, because they would come into contact with new or even like old species and have issues and have conflict. And a huge part of resolving the conflict was, how do we honor everyone? Obviously, it means nobody gets everything they want, but you don't violate or disrespect culture. So articulating it through the lessons that these cadets are learning. To me, I was like, oh, it reminded me of some of my reactions to Discovery episodes where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm crying every episode, but they're just telling, like, this is like classic Trek story and Federation ethos.
Yeah. We also have some notes here of these scenes. I think at the end of the Dominion War, I actually forgot this, there were some Jem'Hadar who were freed from the Ketracel White, which was the drug that was enslaving them. It's also interesting that she said that her Klingon half renounced their house to join the Jem'Hadar. I like to see a little bit more about what battle they decided to renounce their house for to fight along the Jem'Hadar. And of course, we hear more about Kalish in the myth. We saw a bunch of him in DS9 and TNG. So Act 7, we actually get to the battle. The USS Athena arrives at Fawn Alpha. Jay-Den is brought to the bridge. Aki welcomes Cadet Kraag. Jay-Den doubts himself a bit. He says, what if I'm wrong? And have convinced everyone to take advice from a cadet with no battle experience. Aki says the Federation thinks it's worth the risk. No matter how this ends, you brought us here. That means everything. They hail General Obel, and Admiral Vance announces Klingon ships have taken refuge in this sector. They have trespassed Federation space and threaten the security of our planet, Fawn Alpha. The Federation has no choice but to declare any Klingon ship an enemy vessel. You see a smile come across a face and he said, do you dare to declare war on all Klingon houses? And then Aki says, fight with me. The Starfleet vessels have arrived, the USS Langston, the USS Riker, all in red alert. And then Aki commands tell our folks to put on a good show, but make sure they miss wide. The Klingons fire. Athena's shield holds at 95%, no structural damage. Aki, all Starfleet vessels hold fire. It's time to stand down. Admiral Vance announces, on behalf of the Federation, we offer you complete surrender. Klingon ships have shown ours mercy. There are no casualties on both sides. Obek says, we seize this planet as spoils of war. It seems a good fight. And then Aki says, my pleasure. Obek summons Jay-Den. He presents with a bow weapon. I honor you, Jay-Den Kraag, with the weapon of a true Klingon warrior. He says that he's located his parents. They survived, are safe now, and the Klingon houses have a new home thanks to you. Yeah.
So I thought it was comical because we knew they were just showing up for a fake battle, and Admiral Vance and Aki are completely in on it. But obviously the Klingons are willing to go along because they want a new home. I don't think it's that they did not want one, but it could not just be given to them. They had to fight for it, and to see them sort of test out this idea from a cadet. One of the things I like about Trek is in those moments of battle or when there's decisions to be made, your best captains try to hear from everybody, right? Opinions from everyone, and even it might seem silly or not work, but you give voice to the voiceless.
Yeah, I thought about this solution and it seemed actually perfect for me. If you really think about the Klingon culture, of course they really prize battle, actual bloodshed, but they have this other part of them where they're poetic and they love story. So it's really about the story. 2 centuries from now, after this battle, the story will be like, that's what people died. They wrestled this world from the Federation, and that's what they wanted, and they got that.
Yeah. In the conclusion, we see Jay-Den tries the warriors. Caleb also returns the broken transmitter that he found, and Caleb repaired it for him. And Caleb reveals that it was Darim who helped him. Jay-Den apologized for how he treated Caleb and said, I did not think both of you could live in my heart, and I believed I had to let him go. Caleb also opens up and says he's never been good at letting go. You asked me why I hoard Earth food, and his mom had promised that they would try together someday. The memories of her and him, and he has to drown them out somehow, so he starts things. And Jay-Den shares his wisdom. Maybe the trick is not to let go of the past, but to let the present in. When we close with the Academy recruitment that Jay-Den's brother once showed him. After 120 years, we are recruiting again. It's time to fly your own path. Yeah, and so that was really very sad but also happy ending. Like, you see them reconnecting, reestablishing their bond, Jay-Den and Caleb, thrown together from day one, right? From that first scene where Jay-Den is made to throw his egg on top of Caleb's back, and they just have this natural bond. I'm excited to see how their friendship develops over the series.
Yeah, it was a really good episode. The stuff with Jay-Den was front and center, but the development of their relationship was also nice to see that they're letting each other in. To the point that I was making earlier, it definitely seems like he didn't want war in his heart between his brother and Caleb. He found a way to reconcile that. He's not going to let go of his brother, but he also is going to let Caleb in. So it's nice, really nice. All right, any final thoughts about this episode?
Just, I enjoyed seeing Jayden's story. And one thing I didn't know, I also enjoyed seeing Caleb. You also see a different side of his personality, right?
Mhm.
He's not this like defiant and not trying to be part of Starfleet, but he's smart, right? We knew he was smart in a very like technical sense,
Technical,
right?
yeah.
And build things, but now we also see he knows a lot and he understands a lot. And he can argue his way out of a lot of things to him. And so, yeah, building on those relationships again, like you see Daram step up. And I think the way he presented in the first episode to now, you're definitely like, oh, I don't hate this guy as much as I did when he first appeared. And yeah, I'm really curious to see how these relationships develop. And then on the Klingon side of it, Fawn Alpha, I thought they said it's like pretty close to Earth, right? Like
Federation space, yeah.
Base. And so I wonder if that also means we're going to see more of the Klingons as they start to rebuild their home. So yeah, that's a really touching episode.
Yeah, this episode really elevated the series for me. I was liking the episodes before, but really this one like blew me away. Jay-Den went from the comic relief Klingon to one of the most compelling characters in modern Trek. From his like family structure to his very specific struggles with his culture and his family. Reframing his father's missed shot is the kind of twist that changes everything you thought you knew about a character. We'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments. Did Thawk's interpretation of the hunt surprise you? And what do you think of Jayden's solution to the Klingon refugee crisis? If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to like and share. It really helps our channel out. And please subscribe for more in-depth analysis of film and TV, and hit the bell notification so you don't miss our next breakdown. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.